Hey everyone, 4K is meaningless. It's a myth, an illusion, a con. I mean, technically it's not. It refers to something that's 3,840 pixels wide by 2,160 pixels tall. But there's a problem with this definition. This is a 4K image. It's 3,840 pixels wide after all. However, all I actually did was take footage from a budget full HD camera and blow it up to 4K. The actual 4K image quality here is useless because you can barely see any details on my face. That's the concern I have when companies go out and market 4K cameras, be it on webcams, smartphones or CCTV cameras. What actually matters for image quality is the camera sensor and bitrate of the recording. I mean, technically there is more to it, as this super smart guy pointed out on Reddit. But in general, the sensor and the bitrate are what matters for the average Joe, or average Tristan in this case. To highlight this point, I compared footage from my garage's 4K camera from Anker with my Samsung S20 phone and also my Sony Alpha DSLR camera. My Anker records in 4K resolution at 3.5 megabits per second bitrate. It actually sports up to 6 megabits, but it averages out closer to 3.5. My Sony camera records at 56 megabits per second bitrate, while my phone records at 40 megabits. I did a few tests here. The first one is me leaving the garage door open, and this confused my Sony camera, partly because I left it on auto mode, so the black backlight then flooded the scene and meant that my face was barely recognisable, which isn't ideal. But in general, when you do try and pick out some detail, like this box of screws that I'm holding up, the Sony camera is much better than the Anker and Samsung devices. The detail and quality vary a lot here, despite the fact that all three recordings are marked as 4K. My Anker CCTV camera and Samsung phone often result in similar image quality, maybe with my phone being slightly ahead, but not enough to justify 11 times more bitrate. In other words, my phone's recordings take up a lot more disk space than the Anker camera. While our first test didn't show my Sony in the best light, get it? Light? The backlight caused an issue, yeah? Never mind. That was mainly down to me leaving my Sony in auto mode, which caused, those backlighting problems that we saw. My second test was fairer, and it basically involved me shutting the garage door and turning the light on. And you can see that the Sony camera is massively ahead of the Anker and Samsung devices here. My face is clear nearly all of the time with the Sony, and the box of screws is also readable, further away and also close up. Comparing the Anker and Samsung devices, I think that I prefer the Anker image quality here. My face and the screw box both lack a bit of clarity with my Samsung device, in my opinion. But what do you think? Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because this can all be a bit, subjective. Before discussing the reason why the image quality varies so much between these three 4K recordings, I wanted to make two quick points. Firstly, my Sony and Samsung cameras don't really offer night vision recording, while my Anker CCTV camera does. This means that when I turn the light off, my Sony and Samsung devices are about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. I like that one. When the Anker cam detects low light, it switches on its infrared lights, which you can hear by the clicking sound. It then records me in decent quality, considering this almost pitch black in the garage. So if you're looking at 4K cameras and you wanted to sometimes record in zero light situations, make sure that the device has some sort of nighttime vision support, like a conventional CCTV camera, or pair in a fast lens with a full frame camera. My second quick point is that I haven't really discussed FPS yet. My Sony and Samsung cameras are recording at 30 FPS, although they do support up to 60 FPS at 4K too. However, my Anker camera is stuck at 15 FPS. This isn't too bad for conventional security cameras. However, if you plan on recording roads, in other words, moving cars, then 15 FPS probably won't be enough to actually capture the motion properly. You'll often end up with blurry stills and insufficient detail, such as not being able to read the plate number. Okay, so I've compared these three 4K cameras, and it's clear that the image quality can vary a lot. Having too much light or none of it can make a big difference. But in normal conditions, my DSLR camera is significantly better than my phone and my Anker cameras. Well, why is this? As I mentioned earlier, both the camera's sensor and storage bitrate matter a lot. The camera's sensor is the thing that captures incoming light. A large sensor means that more information can be captured, resulting in higher image quality, less noise, and often just better performance in low light situations. Although, as we saw, they can't work miracles if there's, just zero light. The size of the three sensors are on screen now. and you can see that the Samsung and Anker ones are similar, but the Sony is far ahead. It's much bigger, meaning they can capture more light and ultimately deliver higher quality images. And that's pretty much what we saw from our tests too, with the Samsung and Anker being close to each other, but the Sony being far ahead. That's why the sensor is so important. And when a new camera or phone is released and they just discuss it as 4K or 120 FPS at 4K, I'm never too interested. If the sensor is small, like on my Samsungs, then they can use all the fancy marketing terms they want. But in reality, the image quality will be closer to a 2K camera. That's why I started this video by saying that 4K is meaningless. But what about bitrate? Well, this is literally the number of bits per second that gets stored. The higher the bitrate, the higher the image quality in general. There is a case of diminishing returns here though. You know how you can compress a large 10 megabyte file down to 1 megabyte and the pictures almost look the same? Well, you can do similar things with video recordings too. I could probably get my 56 megabit Sony recordings down to 20 megabits or so without losing much image quality. That's also why my Samsung and Anker cameras have similar image quality, despite having very different bit rates. My Samsung phone lazily records at 40 megabits, even though its camera sensor is just too small to justify such a high bitrate. In other words, my phone's recordings take up too much space considering that the image quality is often lacking a 4K level. And that pretty much wraps up today's video. I know this is a tech channel, not a camera review channel, but I wanted to drill into this topic because most of us are interested in 4K, image quality, and often cameras. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the thumbs up button. Please also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and thank you for watching.